Hey everybody, it is a beautiful day, although a little bit misty. It has been a cooler than normal summer, but I am thrilled that you're here. Thanks for being here with me. I'm Rita Hickman, body-mind expert, shiatsu massage therapist, and I help women who are in toxic and narcissistic relationships really find their way out, whether it's their way out of their own mental turmoil or their emotional or the physical situation they're in. I really help you figure out how you work so that you can manage, how you feel, the cloudiness in your head, the anxiety in your gut, the, pain and discomfort in your shoulder, whatever it may be. I have a few mosquitoes around, sorry. Whatever it may be, I help women kind of navigate their way through, figure out what's working, what's not, and how to get on a good path. So today we're going to talk a little bit about narcissism and mental health. So, there's a lot of things that make somebody a narcissist. And, there's the whole clinical definition of it. But in reality, everybody has a touch of narcissism in them. And depending upon how they were raised, whether they were given good coping tools or not, or whether they learned good coping tools, usually determines whether someone, how well someone manages that normal self-protection, self-absorbed part that the ego part that says, you know what, we need to protect ourselves here. This needs to be about us for a while. So when I first started on my healing journey, I realized that there was a part of me that was narcissistic as well. I was in so much pain. I was so uncomfortable, but I had been for decades. I had been the majority of my life not a narcissist because I learned, to be a good girl. I learned to take all of my feelings and all of my thoughts and put them aside and sacrifice everything for everybody else and kind of be in a place of suffering. And it's this suffering, it's this place of being in pain that you don't think there's anything you can do about it. This feeling of helplessness and hopelessness and all of these emotions that have been suppressed down and lodged in our body, and we don't know how to handle them, and we're frightened of them, and we let them build up until they explode into something. That is what happens to a lot of women who are then in narcissistic relationships. We start to become more self-absorbed because we have to be, because we get to the point of stress and overwhelm that without good coping tools, without doing good self-care stuff, and then we cross that line into not being able to care about the people that we want to care about because we are so consumed by how angry we are or hurt we feel or sick we feel. For me, it was always sick. I was consumed with how much my stomach was bothering me and the headaches and this feeling of heaviness. There wasn't anything I didn't know there was anything I could do about it. And so instead, I just kept carrying on until I hit about 30. And when I hit 30, I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I'm starting to become like the people that had, victimized me or that I had felt victimized from. It was still under wraps, but internally, that's what was going on. So there are a lot of reasons people behave in narcissistic ways. It could be chemical imbalances, it could be bipolar, it could be borderline personality disorder, it could be PTSD, it could be depression, it could be anxiety. There's all sorts of reasons why people have to go into that super self-protective mode and that, they're struggling to keep it all together, but it's just not happening. It's starting to come out in ways that push people away. Either push men away or women away or our family or the people that we love, just because we feel so sensitive, so off balance that we can't even be around people because we know we might trigger, we know we might set off. So, you have to look at, when we have a conversation about narcissism, we have to look at the mental health piece. And the mental health piece, not only for the person who, is the narcissist behaving in a very volatile, angry, destructive way, and for the people who's a victim of a narcissist. We have to start looking at this behavior, of complete self-absorption through a little bit different lens. It's kind of hard because when you've got a narcissist who's attacking you and you don't know why, because if you were in the same situation, you wouldn't respond that way. It's very easy to wonder what you did, how you set them off, why are they doing this to you, what's going on. And in reality, it has nothing, very, very little to do with the person who's being victimized by the narcissist, and much more to do with the inner turmoil and imbalance and discomfort and frustration and overwhelm that the narcissist is feeling. That's why people ask me every so often, women ask me, they're like, well, I started studying narcissism and I wanted to know if I'm a narcissist. So there's the clinical definition of narcissism, which is actually a very, very small part of the population. And then there's people who behave in very narcissistic ways, and we are all capable of that. We're all capable of, when we're in the corner, fighting to survive. It's our survival instinct. And the problem is we let ourselves get into that corner, and so our mental health is shaky, and then we behave in ways which, we might not be happy with or proud of, or make our lives more difficult or more destructive. So, when we start the conversation about narcissism, we do need to start with the word compassion. We need to start looking at compassion for ourselves, compassion for the other person. Doesn't mean that as an empath or as someone who is a healer of any sort, or a coach or a counselor, doesn't mean that you'll be able to fix them. It doesn't mean that you'll even be able to change their behavior. But when we can look at the narcissist through the lens of mental health, that they're struggling with an experience, an inner experience that we might not even know what that's like. I work with a lot of women who have things like bipolar, or who have severe PTSD. And they have these inner experiences, and I'm sure you've had some of these experiences too. These inner experiences of complete overwhelm, whether it's rage or anxiety or just shutting down or frozen or paralyzed in place. These are, this is when you're struggling with mental health for whatever reason, either because of, trauma when you were a kid, or because of physical issues that aren't being taken care of. When we have a mental health disturbance like that, the narcissism is like a symptom. And when we can look at the narcissist and the narcissism as a symptom of their inner experience, for someone who's, let's say, in a victim place, it gives you a level of calm and confidence. It gives you a level of peace because you finally realize it really isn't about you. It's about somebody who's struggling, really struggling. And as an adult, they're responsible for their own experience. Just like as you've been struggling, many times you've been responsible for, making your life better. I know one of the confusing things for me was, hey, wait, I went through these same things and yet I behave in a much nicer way than the narcissist does. But part of it is, my self-preservation came up under an experience of needing to completely suppress absolutely everything. And so it would come out physically. I'd pee myself, or I'd cry all the time, or, sweating, or constantly an upset stomach. And so my feelings got so internalized that they made me sick. And this is true with a lot of women. And with a lot of men, they don't have the same filter, or they haven't developed it as much. They don't have good coping skills or relationship skills. And so their tool tends to be to behave in a really destructive sort of way. As an empath or compassionate person, it's not about you even helping the narcissist. It's about getting yourself in a good space so someone else's mental health issues don't completely screw up the rest of your life. Now, if you're in a good space, if you get into a good space, then you can be present for the people that you love, which may include the narcissist, which may include, they could be your father or your mother, they could be your child or your spouse or somebody at work. But the key is when we've got a narcissist who's got mental health issues, and then someone who's been victimized most of their life, and they've got issues, mental health issues with that, nobody can help anybody. It just ends up a big mess, a big, destructive, angry, sick, health problem mess. But when you really take your time and learn how to stay healthy and get the support you need to stay healthy and get the nourishment you need physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to get healthy, then if you choose to, you can engage and be closer to a narcissist. You know, like my dad. I had to get into a really healthy space before I could walk into that relationship and start to change it. Or with any of my friends who lean more towards that narcissist, inner experience that they have, either, as I said, because of something like bipolar and chemical imbalances, or it can be a result of physical issues, or how they feel, or brain tumors, or stuff that they might have had. I mean, my mom had a clot in her brain from an accident from when she was a kid. So we've got a lot. We all have a lot going on. And when you can look at narcissism or a toxic person more as struggling with an inner experience that they don't know how to handle, which they need someone who's maybe a professional, somebody who can help them get what they need. When you look at that experience through a mental health perspective, it just makes it so much easier, because then you're able to see a solution. It's not about you turning inward and wondering why this is happening to you. It's you realizing that, this is a challenge that somebody else has, and it's your job. Your job is to take care of yourself, is to make sure you get into the best space possible. Because when you do, that's the only time you're really able to help somebody, is when you're getting your well filled, when you're getting yourself nourished, when you're getting yourself in a good place. That's when the only time you're really able to help anybody, no matter who they are. And the only time you're able to really make a big, beautiful impact in the world. Because if you aren't in a good space, then all bets are off. I mean, look at the world we're in. We're in a world where people are very polarized and angry and acting out vicious, and their narcissism is coming to the forefront. They're in places of crisis and self-preservation, but we don't know it. We don't see it. It comes out in all of these weird ways, and we're wondering, well, why is somebody behaving that way? Many times it's because they've got this whole thing going on that we may not ever understand. And then we have to look at the relationship and decide, is this something I can handle and manage? Or is this something that somebody else needs, some professional help for? And if they do, I need to start directing them in that way. To look at them as someone who's really struggling doesn't mean you put up with anything, but to look at them through that lens. And only when you're in a better space, in a space where you feel like you've evolved to a higher version of yourself, that's the time that you can help the narcissists that you do love, that are in your life. Before then, you can't really help them, because it's then the two of you triggering each other. So step number one always when dealing with a narcissist is self-care. To do the things for yourself that put you in a good space so that you can feel inside of yourself healthy and balanced and okay. And when you do that, that's the only time that you can help the narcissist in your life. So step one, you have to take care of yourself. Step two is recognize that the narcissist is dealing with something that's way beyond you, a mental health thing that goes all the way back to when they were a kid. And maybe there were multiple things, because usually people with PTSD already had anxiety disorders going on. And so they've been dealing with anxiety all of their life, and then something happens. Somebody dies, a big change happens, their foundation gets shaken. They see something, whatever it may be. And then that triggers them into that, chronic self-preservation mode, okay? So if you want to start healing from narcissism and toxic relationships, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to look at the narcissist as somebody who is sick and needs help, and maybe you aren't the person to give it to them. Got it? So your homework assignment today, as usual, is to do something that grounds you, that nourishes you. Right now, even being out in the rain today, I'm feeling the the sprinkles on me, and it's awesome. It's life affirming. Anything that gets you outside, anything that gets you connected or communing with nature, or talking to a spider, or planting flowers, or anything that nourishes you, that has to be your highest priority. Something that nourishes you. Because that love, that feeling of self-love, by doing things that are kind and gentle and feel good to you, that love is the technology that changes the world. It's the physical vibration that they can measure. It comes from your heart. It comes off of you in waves. It heals your body. It heals the people around you. It's being in that place of sincere balance and love, which only comes when all parts of you are getting the nourishment that they need. That balance and love is what changes the world. And so the first place you need to love is you need to love yourself, because you can't love anybody from a depleted, empty, angry, conflicted, frustrated space. Then you can't really help somebody the way that you want to. The only way that you can is by getting into that place of self-love, loving yourself enough that you have more than enough from the overflow to give to the other people in your life, okay? So, if you haven't already joined the Healthy Mindsets to Cope with Narcissists, please do, or invite other people to if you already have. And if you're looking for another step, I've collaborated with an author on narcissism. They wrote the book, and then I'm doing a group coaching program. So I'll put the link a little bit later if you're interested in looking at the book and following the funnel into my group coaching program. It's really affordable. And I'll put the link in the comments a little bit later. And or tomorrow even. You know what? I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, and I'll put the link in the title section. That'll work best. So look for it tomorrow. Anyways, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.